Hi and welcome to CTF Security. In this exciting video, we will explore the world of web security and Python automation. Today, we will learn how to brute force and bypass a login form protected by Arithmetic Captcha using Python scripting. By the end of this video, you will have a solid understanding of how Captcha works and how to leverage Python capabilities to automate and bypass the process. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Now, before we begin, it is necessary we understand what Arithmetic Captcha is. An Arithmetic Captcha is a form of authentication that presents a user with a mathematical expression, usually in form of simple arithmetic operations like addition, subtraction, multiplication, or divisions. The user task is to solve this arithmetic problem and provide the correct numerical answers. This approach is intended to be relatively easy for humans to solve while being challenging for automated script or bot to decipher. By including such tasks, websites and applications can differentiate between human users and automated bots, helping to prevent unauthorized access like spam and other malicious activity within websites and applications. Now that that is out of the way, let's take a look at what we have in this room. And as you can see on the screen, the room name is Captcha, and we have a tagline saying, "Can you bypass the login form?" Now we can make a guess that this is going to be some kind of login bypass. Now we have an additional information regarding the authors and creators of this room. This is a free room, which means anyone can deploy virtual machine in the room without being subscribed. About 3,546 users are in here, and this room is 107 days old. We also have additional informations like our IP address, which is 10.10.82.161, our time, and you can always add the time if you want, if the time here is not enough for you, so that won't be a problem. So we are going to move away from that. If we scroll down, we have a blue button here asking us to download a tax file. But before we do that, let's take a look at the information we have regarding the task 1. So Secure Solar Coders has once again developed a web application. They were tired of hackers enumerating and exploiting their previous login form. They thought a web application firewall WAF was too overkill and unnecessary. So they developed their own rate limiter and modified the code slightly. Before we start, download the required files by pressing the download tax file button. So we can go ahead and just do that quickly. So this is going to obviously ask us for a location. So you can see the file name is captcha.zip, and I'm going to save it on document so I can easily move it away from there. So I'm going to click save. So we can now access the document folder. So I'm going to see the document. And let's take a look at what we have. So you can see we have the captcha.zip. I'll quickly create a new directory we're going to be working with in this video. So let's call it make dir captcha. And then I can move the captcha.zip file into the captcha directory. Okay, so let's see the captcha now. Clear this. So what do we have? So we have captcha.zip. Now this is a zip file. We need to unzip it. So let's quickly run unzip captcha.zip. Good. So we can see inflating password.txt, inflating username.txt. Let's take a look at what we have within these two files. First of all, I'm going to be using Pluma, a text editor, to view the passwords.txt. So you can see this is combination of random password. We have about 1,567 password within this password.txt. So I'll close that and take a look at what we have on the username.txt. The same command, username flag.txt. So we have username also about 878 random usernames. And so I'm just going to close this also. So we can proceed. I'm going to close this. Now let's move to the next task and see what we have installed for us. So the next task says, please wait approximately 3 to 5 minutes. I guess we've waited that long. So for the application to start, you can find the web application at http 10.10.82.161. And the question here is, what is the value of flag.txt? So obviously, when we're able to log into the web application, we should get our flag.txt. But before then, let's grab our IP address. Now in this video, I'm going to be working with two web browsers. This is because I don't want to interfere within the two traffic going through the two web browser. For example, I'm going to be using the Firefox to access the room right here and the room information right here, while I'm going to be using the Chrome application to access the website, so that whenever I'm capturing traffic within the application, it doesn't interfere with the traffic of the Tryhakme room itself. And I can easily configure the Chrome application to be able to direct its proxy through the Bobsuit proxy. So I'm going to place the IP address right in here and click on the enter key, and this is going to load the interface of the application we're going to be working with. And you can see it is 10.10.82.161, and it redirected us straight to the login page. And we have a title, intranet login, and we have a username and password box right here, and a submit or login button rather. Now I'm just going to be interacting with this application like a normal user. So let's assume an admin wants to log into this application, and it just comes right in here and type first name admin, password admin. At least that is the most common password out there. So I'm just going to click on login and see how the website interact or react to the information I supplied. And you can see that there's a check going on within this application, and it's kind of check the data that I put into the text boxes, and it is able to provide an error message saying the user admin does not exist. So now that I understand how the application works, I'm going to try to brute force this web application with the username and the password.txt file that has been provided in the room, which we saw earlier. To do that, I'm going to be using Bobsuit. So I'm going to launch my Bobsuit application. You can also do this using Hydra or using Fuzz or any other applications of your choice. But for simplicity, I'm going to be working with the Bobsuit Community Edition. So while the Bobsuit is coming up, let's take that time to configure our Chrome application to be able to capture requests from the Bobsuit application. So I'm going to head to the extensions which I've already set up. We have our Foxy proxy, which we're able to switch between our normal default proxy and the 127.0.0.1 port 8080 proxy for the Bobsuit. So I'm going to turn that on so that any traffic I'm sending will pass through that particular proxy. So if you need me to create a video on how to configure or how to set up the Foxy proxy, please drop that in the comment section below. I'll be so happy to do that. While that is coming up, let's check the status of the files that we have. So I'm going to head straight to the terminal and still try to, okay, yeah, so we have it intact right here, the password.txt and the username.txt. So we're just going to wait a few seconds for our Bobsuit application to load. Okay, so now that our Bobsuit has successfully started, what we need to do is to still make sure that we have our Foxy proxy still turned on. Okay, great. So it's still configured to the 127.0.0.1 for all URL. So what I'm going to do is to head back to the Bob suite, turn on my intercept, and from here I can head to the Chrome. So let's just modify this. Let's use ctfsec as a username, and the password we just use password, just a random credentials, because I know ctfsec is not a valid user on this application. So I'm going to click on login. So when we do this request is going to get captured by the Bob suite. So let's check that right now. And you can see that we have captured a request from our IP address /login page, and you can see that this is our IP address, and we have some content headers like content length, cache control, upgrade insecure request, origin, content types, and various other headers that is associated with this request that we just captured. So the first thing I'm going to do is to kind of forward this request to both the intruder and at the same time forward the request to the repeater. You can also see that aside from the headers, we also have the data being sent to the server. We have the ctfsec as our username and the password as the password for the account that we're trying to log in into. So if we head to the repeater, and if I try to forward this request, so let's send it through the repeater and see how this website interacts with the repeater. So you can see that we have a status code of 200, which means that the page loaded successfully. And if you scroll down, we have some HTML document showing the page, and we have an error message saying the username ctfsec does not exist. If you want to take a look at this as a standard HTML document, we can view the GUI form by rendering the page. So once we render it, it's going to show actually how the page looks like. Now what we're going to do is head to the intruder, I beg your pardon. So from the intruder, you can see that the data are selected, the ctfsec and the password, they are both selected. So I'm going to switch the attack type to cluster bomb because I want to kind of brute force this page with the file that we have already, that we just downloaded from the Tryhakme room, which is the captcha.zip file, which contains the username.txt and the password.txt. So I want to pick randomly from the username data and kind of brute force it against the password data and see if I can have my way into the web application. So we're just taking this ctfsec and the password as a variable, which we're going to be substituting in every values from that username.txt and the password.txt. So what we need to do next is to set the payload. So the first payload, which is the username, I'm going to upload the file we just downloaded. So I'm going to load let's go to the document directory, and from the document directory we have captcha directory. I'm going to upload the username.txt as the first payload. Great, so you can see it's all uploaded and you can view them right here. So what we'll do next is to set the second payload. So I'm going to switch this to 2, and I'm going to set or load in the password.txt as the second payload. So with this all set, we have the number of total payload count, which is 1567. Number of request count is 1 million. That is after brute forcing it against each other will be 1,375,826. So that will be the total. So what we're going to do next is just to start the attack. So we just have a warning. The community edition of Bob suite contains demo version of intruder. Some functionalities is disabled and attack are time throttle. So this is to go a little bit slower. So that is why I would recommend to use a command line application for this brute forcing. But either way, I'm still just going to use Bob suite because of the simplicity. So you can see how our data is being brute force. You can see it's picking each of the items on the payload, sorry, on the payload 1, which is the username, and is cross-checking it to the first item on the password data. So after it's done, so it's going to pick the same payload and brute forces against a different password from the password.txt line. And you can see how this is interacting. Now, if we take a look at the first request, so let's see what we get from the first request. So we have, let me just take this a little bit up. Let's see if we can expand this. Can we move this up? Good. All right, great. So the first request we have, let's take a look at the response. So we have 200, okay. And if we scroll down, let's see if we are still having invalid username or error. Do we still have something like that? Okay, we have the username does not exist. So we'll keep checking the various requests that we have. Let's see. You can start to see that this length kind of differ. So let's see what this is giving us. If it's a different request, let's see. I'm trying to find the message. None yet, none yet, none yet, none yet. Okay, still the username Corinne does not exist. Okay, all right. So let's scroll down a little bit and let's see what we have on Bruce. Bruce response is, oh, okay. I think we have something strange now. We have too many bad login attempts, capture enable, and we have a captcha that we expected to solve and that we failed to solve. Then it kind of limits how we communicated with the page. Now, seeing this, we're able to tell that this website is using a rate limiter of about maybe 10 requests. So once you tried an invalid credential for like 10 times, this rate limiter activates itself and the captcha gets enabled. And if you're unable to solve the captcha, then you get an error message telling you too many bad login attempts. So this is how the website is working. Now, the situation now on ground is for us to be able to create a payload or to create an exploit code that will be able to brute force this web application at the same time solving all the captcha enabled expressions that we are being presented with on the process of brute forcing the application. And this is where the Python comes in. So what we're going to do now is to create a Python script to brute force this application and find this captcha, solve the captcha, and then pass in the data for the captcha as the data along with the request, which will be able to give us access to the page. So that will move us to the next chapter of this video. Before we start creating our Python script to solve this problem, let's take a look at how we can stop this brute force attack by the Bob suit so that it doesn't interfere with whatever we have going on the Python script. So what I'm going to do is to click on attack and click on pause so that we can stop this process. So what we do next is head to our terminal, and from here on the same directory we can create our new Python script, Pluma, and let's call it bypass captcha.py. Okay, so this is going to create a new page. So I'm going to take this to the right and we can start writing our script. The first thing we want to do is to make sure we import all the relevant module we're going to use in this script. So the first one I'm going to import is the request module, and then I'm also going to import the regular expression because we're going to be using this to find the captcha within the login page. We also have, aside from importing libraries, we need to initiate our URL, which is the link that is going to take us to the login page. And then I'm just going to leave that empty for now. So we're going to paste the link right inside that string right there. So I also need to declare my headers for the page in order to supply all relevant HTTP header into the request message. The next thing we're going to also do is to declare a variable for the regex, which we're going to be using to find our captcha within the login page. Let's just fill this in. The first thing we need to do is to grab the URL. So I'm going to head to my page and I'm going to grab the URL. You can also see that the IP address here has changed. This is because my login session has expired, and then when I restarted the VPN, kind of give me a new IP address to work with, so that shouldn't interfere with our task. So I'm just going to copy the new IP address and I'm going to put it right here. So good, we have our URL. So the next thing we want to do is to grab our header, and in order for us to get our header, we'll just head to the Bob suite, and from the Bob suite, let's go to the repeater again. So you can see the data that the request is passing over to the server. You can see the headers here. We have the origin, the content type, accept, and even the referral header. So what I'm going to do right now is to just grab just a single header. You can have more, but because of time, I'm just going to be grabbing the content type header, which specify the type of content we are sending over to the server. So let's just copy that, and we can have that in our script. So we're going to pass this as a dictionary. So in order to do that, we need to start it with a curly bracket, and then we need to specify that this first content type is the key, and we need to pass the other as the value. So let's have this as the value. So I'm just going to close my parentheses, and I think that is fine. So lastly, I need my regex. So we're going to be using a regex for that, but I'm still coming back to the regex. So for now, I'll just leave it at just an empty string right there. I'll just bring back what I have here. Great. So the first thing we want to do is to define a function. So let's say define a function. We can call it extract underscore arithmetic. Let's call it expression. So this can be any name, by the way. We're going to have an argument which we need to pass in called expression, and we'll just close this. So we've declared a function. We can have little kind of description of what the function is actually doing. So I can just let's see, 1 2 3 4. I can say let's call it extract and return the portion of the expression. Okay, so I'm just going to leave this blank for now. So let's proceed by writing our code. So we're going to come back to that function later. I'm going to precede this with a comment to prove that we are just pointing out some information right there. So what we need to do is to first of all to be able to open the file we downloaded earlier, which is our username.txt and the password.txt. So I'm going to use the with open. We want to open our username. So we'll have username, which is the file you're seeing here. So it's usernames.txt. I'm going to close this. We also need to open the password.txt. But before we do that, I need to close the string right there, and we are opening it as user. Just give it a new name. Let's say user file name, and we'll also open the other one. Let's open the bracket. We can also have password.txt. We'll close this, and we are opening it as password or pass file rather okay, yeah, I think that pass file is kind of cool enough. We can have, since we have user file name, we can have this also as pass file name, and we can terminate that. All right, great. Okay, so we open the username file and we also open the password file. So what we need to do next is we need to have a kind of indentation because we are using the with open function, and we need to use the variable we just declared, username file equals to, let's have it as user, just the same name, user file name dot read, and I want to be able to split this into a list. So I'm going to explain this in a jiffy. So let's have the other one also. Password, I hope I spelled that correctly. No, pass file name, user file, is this correct? Is even correct? User file, this is wrong. User file name and pass file name equals to pass file name dot read, and we can have it as dot split lines. So now what this is going to do is the values that we have from the username and the password file, which we downloaded earlier, is going to extract those names by opening the names, and is going to add each of the item in the text file. Is going to convert it to a list. That is just what this part of the code is going to do. So we can forge ahead, but before we move ahead, let's try to confirm that everything is working perfectly. So what I'm going to do is to print both the user file name, and let's print, okay, let me just print this first. I can save, confirm that I have saved. Then we can have Python 3 bypass captcha.py. All right, so what could be the issue? So let me just comment my function out for now, and let's kind of enlarge this and see how it looks. Save, and let's have this again. Okay, great. So it was actually because the function I declared earlier was empty. So you can see that all the items within the password.txt file and the username.txt file are now treated as a list, and you can see each of the item within those text file. So we're going to head back to our code now that everything is fine, and we can proceed. So what we need to do next is we can also confirm the other one. So print pass file name, and before we do that, we can kind of clear this. We can have can I save, and then we can have Python 3, we can have bypass. Great. So you can see the password is also treated as a list. So we can get rid of this and continue writing our script. We can make little modification to this. So I'm just going to change this name just to have a new variable name. So we're going to call it username line, and we'll also call this username line. That is for every, this one we call password line. That's for every iteration. So we'll now be having just username line and password line. Then I can now loop through the username line and the password line. So first of all, we'll be working with username. We want to be able to verify the username of the user. So for username in username line, so let's have the data we're passing in. we'll head to my Bob suit. So from the Bob suit, you can actually gather the data you are sending from your request here. So I'm just going to copy. Can I do that again? Copy, and I'll head to the script, and I can pass this into the data. So I'm going to paste. This has to be in code, so I'm going to just format it. All right, great. So what we need to do next is to request. So we can have p just as a variable, and we use the p to request a post request, and we'll pass in the URL parameter. We'll pass in the data equals to data, and lastly we pass in the headers equals to headers. So I can close the parentheses. All right, so I can verify this and say print p.text. So let's save that, and let's see what we have. Okay, so I forgot my column right there. So I'm going to save once more and run the script. All right, that's great. So if I scroll up, you can see that we have the content of the page, which is exactly what we are having right here. So you can see it's on the screen. And if you go back to what we are having on the terminal, you see that this keeps changing because we are looping through every item in the username.txt. You can see it keeps giving us different captcha. So let me just look for one. Let's see, I think I saw one earlier. Okay, this is one. Okay, we have 681 times 5, I guess, and we also have, I think we have one more. See, 613 times 50. So that is how the captcha keep changing. So now the main idea is that we want to be able to solve this captcha. As the captcha keep changing, we want to be able to provide the solution to this captcha so that we can get past the enabled captcha and be able to verify the actual password and username for this particular user. And a very easy way to do that is to be able to, so let me just stop that right away. Just Control C. Just look for one so that we can use it for demonstration. Okay, great. So we need to be able to extract this part of the page that we're getting, which is from the response we're getting from the web server. We need to be able to evaluate this and be able to provide the result, and then we pass the result in as the value. You can see that the value is empty right here, so that it will give us access to be able to validate our username and password. Now if you go to the GUI, you keep saying that you get the same captcha request, because if I go to inspect, let me just close this one. So if I go to let's see, I think we have view page source code. So we are having something very similar to this request in the backend. So you can see that this is exactly what we are having. So let's just kind of add to the time for, let's just add 1 hour so that we can proceed with the lab. All right, great. So just like I was explaining, we see that the same output that we are having here is the same thing we have when we request this page using our Python script. The only difference is that we keep looping through every available username from the username.txt file. So to cut the story short, what we're going to do, let me just clear this for now, is let's have our script back to be able to extract that with a regular expression. Now what we need to take into consideration is we need to be able to locate digit first. We need to be able to specify a space. We need to be able to specify that you can have either a minus, multiplication, addition, or multiplication, or whatever kind of evaluation method that is being used in the captcha. Then you also have a digit. Then the equals to is not necessary, because when we begin to evaluate, it causes issue. And that was why I declared the first function, so that we'll be able to kind of split this captcha into two parts using the equals to. So we only evaluate the left hand side, and we just leave out the right hand side that can cause issue during the Python evaluation. So what we need to do next is to extract the captcha, and we're going to use a regular expression. So I have a regular expression right here that we're going to use. If you're unsure what the regular expression is, you can take a look at the key right here, and also drop a link in the description box below so that you can check out what each of the digits or the character in the regular expression actually means. The regular expression is built to match the pattern that we are having right here in the captcha. So I'm just going to copy, and I'm just going to replace it with the regular expression section that we have right here. So I'm going to save this, and then we can proceed writing our code. So I'm going to get rid of the print statement right here. So the next thing we are going to do is to be able to evaluate. Now, if you go back to the screen right here, you notice that if I try to log in, so let's say, let me just refresh the page. Okay, so let's say we have ctfsec and we have password 1234 or something, and then we try to log in. Okay, you can see that we get an invalid captcha. So what we are taking a look at is the invalid captcha that we have right here. So let me just make this bigger so that you can see it properly. So it's kind of covered by this, but you can see the error message is just below the screen right here. So we're going to make it smaller a little bit. You can also check it here. So if I do the find and I do invalid, so you can see the error message right here, the invalid captcha. So we want to be able to find wherever this invalid captcha exists on this page in order to be able to extract what we have as the captcha. So to do that, we're going to have if statement. Let's just give one line. If, so copy the statement invalid captcha. So we're going to paste it right here, and what will happen if invalid captcha in p.text, we're going to have an indentation. We'll have captcha equals to regular expression, which is the re.find all. So we'll be passing our regex as the parameter, and we'll also be passing not just the regex alone, we'll be passing the p.text, which is the page we're going to get as our response page. So the next thing we need to do, let's activate our function, and to do that, I'm just going to add some little code right here. So to activate, what we're going to do is to return what this function is going to be having, and it's going to be expression dot split. We're going to split, and what are we splitting by? We're splitting by the equals to symbol, and we're picking the first index number dot strip. Then we are removing all the white spaces that we could have right there. So what we just did is to return the function and then split the expression argument that we'll be having by the equals to. So what this is going to do is going to break the content here. It's going to break it by the equals to, and it's going to pick the first index, which is the 0 index according to Python. So we can now scroll down. Okay, great. So we can have this as our function that we have, which is let's just call this arithmetic just a variable, arithmetic expression equals to extract, which is, I can just copy that, the function that we have, we've declared earlier. We just need the name of the function. What's happening? And just paste that right here. And when we've extracted it, we should be having a return captcha, which is a new argument. And lastly, we can also have completed captcha equals to eval, which means evaluate arithmetic expression. So I'm going to close. Now, before we test this out, if you take a look at where we pass in the data here, so the username, we're not sure of that because we want to be able to loop through the username. So what I'm going to do is to pass this in as username here. So we can leave the password as password because we're not concerned about the password for now. We just need to be able to verify the username that we have. So I'm just going to save, and let's see what we have. The text should have that here. Do we have another one? Return captcha, that is on line 23. Line 23. So let me just make this bigger. Line 23. Did I spell something wrong? All right, so I think that was my error. So when we pass the if regex, so we're supposed to be able to loop through whatever is being returned. Capture equals to, sorry, in capture that we have, then we can pass the arithmetic, then which then verify this and pass the return captcha as a parameter. So let me just save this. Let's take it to the side and let's see if we'll have any further error. So we need to be able to pass in a semicolon. We'll clear this and verify what we have. So we also have an indentation issue on line 24. So line 24, sorry about that. So all right, that's nice. So good, because we didn't print anything, so I believe it's functioning well. If we need to confirm this, we can have print completed captcha. Hope I spelled that correctly. And let's have this. Great. So you can see how the captchas are being calculated after every iteration. That is fine. So I'll just clear this. So we can proceed in our code. So now that we have values for our captcha, we need to be able to pass this value in as our data. Remember, we just pass in data as data inside the request message right here. So what we'll do is we'll bring back the last request message that we have. Okay, so we're going to drag this, just copy and drag it down, and let's have it right here. So I need to be able to do some modification to this. So we have captcha, so we're going to obviously add one more. So we have password equals to password. So we also have username equals to username, password is equals to password, and captcha, which is exactly what we have. Where's the captcha? Where's the captcha? This one is the username. Yeah, good. Which is this right here. So let's have captcha equals to whatever we have inside the completed captcha variable. So we're going to have it as this. I'm just going to copy this. So is equals to all right, great. So I'm going to close the bracket. So why does it look like I have a minus here? Is that an error? Okay, everything is correct. So save. We're going to make another request. So let's have our request back. Just going to have it right here. And since we've updated the data, so we are still passing the same parameter, just like the earlier parameter we passed. And then we're going to print wherever we have in p dot text. And I'm going to save. Then for now, I'm going to get rid of this line because I don't want to print the captcha. So let's run our script and see before we proceed. All right, great. So you can see that there's an updated form of what we are having. So I'll stop this so I can evaluate what we are having. So we can see now we have thought I found it somewhere. Sorry about that. Where are you? So now the good news is that each of our captcha is being sent as the data. So you can see it's no longer empty for the value of the captcha. We also have too many bad login attempts, captcha enabled, which we have solved that. Okay, great. So we now have the username Diane. That is when we are trying the Diane as one of the list in the password, one of the password lists. So Diane does not exist. So that is great. Now we are able to brute force our way into the list that we have, to brute force ourselves into the login page. We are attempting to try every possible password from the list and see if we actually have a legitimate user from the username.txt that we downloaded earlier. Now, since everything is fine, what we need to do is to add a conditional statement that will be able to filter and make a check on the output that we are getting from the response message, and to be able to find which of the response does not have the username does not exist. So if we're able to find this, we'll be able to know that that is actually one of the legitimate users that exist on this machine. So what we're going to do right there is to append a conditional statement. So I can also comment this out for now, since I don't need it to print the full statement. So what we can do is to write a conditional statement and say if does not exist, not in p.txt text, I beg your pardon. So what will actually happen? So if it does not exist, that means that is actually the username for the machine. So what will happen is it's going to print, let's have a customized message, the username, should we have this as a variable? I think that is not a cool thing to say, so let's have it as username found, and we can have the name of the username that was found, and we can close our brackets. So that is actually when the text "the user does not exist" cannot be found from the response message. I'm going to save this. We can actually verify this if it works. Let's still confirm that we have it saved, and then we can have clear, and we can run the code. That's strange. So I'll just exit. That's strange. Something is happening. If does not exist, not in. What I'll do is to try to confirm that I still have connection. I hope I still have connection. Okay, great. So I'll just verify that I still kind of have connection. So let's still verify I have connection. Password. All right, great. So I still have connection. So let's see why we are having that strange error message. Okay. So for now, I'm going to comment this. I'm going to also comment this. Then I'm going to have this printed to verify, just for verification purpose. Which is cool. So what's the problem? Oh my god, does not exist. Okay, so I'm just going to clear this. So it's my fault, spelling error. So we'll comment this back, and let's enable this, and we're also going to enable this, but the spelling is wrong, does not exist. So I'm going to save this, and I'm going to run our script. So we'll just wait until we find the actual username to this machine. Okay, so we have a name, we have Edgardo, and we also have Natalie. I've actually done this room before, so I didn't see Elgato, but you can do well to just check it out. But for now, I'm going to be working with the Natalie account. So let's see what we have there. So I'll just terminate this, and we're going to be logging in with the Natalie account. So let's bring back our data. So we can have exact what we have previously for username in username line, but this time around we're going to be having something actually different. So we can have exact thing for password in pass line, the password line. So let me just keep that so that it keeps running. Probably we can see other options, so that will just keep brute forcing through the word list for the username. For password in password line, and we're also going to be looping towards that. I'm going to stick with indenting, so we can have captcha equals to RE, which is regular expression dot find all. So we can also pass in our regex comma and pass in our p.text. I'm going to close this. So we can also have for return, just like the way we have it in username, captcha in captcha. So what will actually happen is we also have the arithmetic. So I'll just grab the code so that we don't have to type it all over again. So just bring it down here and paste. So we can also have the evaluation part, which is actually completed captcha equals to evaluate. I'm just going to copy. I'm going to paste. All right, great. So I'm going to save. Without verification, we can pass in the data that we have also. So we have username as username, we have password. So this time around we'll be having our password to be password in variable. All right, that's great. So we also need to make a post request. We also need to make a post request. Then let's check out the output. So I'm going to save. Then I'm going to print p.txt. I'm going to save and exit, clear, and then we can have our results. Captcha line 37. Line 37 was wrong with line 37. Oh, sorry about that. Completed. So we'll actually be having some messages. Do we have any error message? Captcha required, invalid captcha. So I could actually make this better. So let's say I want to get it fast. We could modify, since we have a username already, we could just pass the username here, which is the Natalie. So instead of having to brute force through the username, we can just say username is equals to not tally. So let's see what we have. So we're actually having a password. We're having captcha. There is an issue though. Our captcha is not changing. So could there be an error? Why do I have an error in my captcha? Why is the captcha not changing? Alright, so I think that was my bad. Captcha, the spelling here is bad. So we have an error right here. Captcha is wrong here. We still have any other bad spelling. So I'm just going to save and try it up again. So let's have that run again. Probably that is where we are having issue from. Okay, great. So I think the value for our captcha is changing now. You can see we're having different captcha at every iteration, and we are having Natalie as our standard username that we're using. The password also is changing, so I'm just going to exit. Now if you go to any of the requests, so let's just pick one of the requests. So you can see that we got a message, invalid password for user. So what we're going to be using is to do the same thing we did to the username. Try to use this password, look for this particular keyword from the response we're getting from the server. If we're not able to get this response, that means that we're actually dealing with the legitimate password or the right password for the Natalie account. But if we keep getting this same keyword, that means it is actually the wrong password. That is why we're having invalid password. So what we're going to do is head back to our script, and let me scroll down a little bit so we can have, just do away with this. All right, great. So what we can do is we can have if. So I'll just copy the message not to have an error message one more time. So I'll just grab it here. So if invalid password, we can try to grab the full error message, copy, and we can just put it in here. So what will happen if we get, let me just make this bigger. So if we get this error message, if invalid password for user not in p.text, so what will actually happen is we're going to print a statement saying password found, and we can have password, and print the actual password out along with it. So we can also print the captcha that we find. So we can say captcha found, I can say complete Let me just grab that to avoid the error I keep getting. Alright, great. So, and do we have something else? So we can pass this data in. I have it already. Why do I need to type it? So you can just pass in the full data. So name is Natalie, password is password, and captcha is captcha, which is actually correct. So what we can also have is a post request, requesting for that particular page. Then lastly, we can print the page, because that is where we're going to find whatever the flag to this room is going to be. So we can have print whatever the content would be. So we can call it response page. So I can have it as p.text. And lastly, once we find the password we want to break, so I'm going to save. So I'll just take this to the right hand side, I'll close this one, clear the screen, and we run our script. So let's wait for the magic to happen. Okay, found the username. Okay, great. So let's scroll up a little bit to see what the request is, if we're lacking something. All right, so we're able to find the username, but this password, does it fit in? Password. Okay, we have a username, it gets evaluated, and we have an invalid captcha. Password found. Good luck. So it's finding multiple passwords, and that's strange. Okay, so let's see the last password it was able to find. Okay, so I'll just clear this and run that again to be able to see. Okay, username found. Okay, what do we have here? Okay, so we actually have a legitimate password. So if we take a look at the request, first of all, Natalie was used, Daniel password was found, but after the brute force attempt, if we scroll down here, let's see the error message we got. Did we get any error message? Not really. What's the error message? Not at all. Not at all. Okay, so I'll just stick with this one. We have a post, we have Natalie as username. Okay, we have Daniel, and we have the captcha, and after everything we got an invalid captcha. And then so we also have for the second attempt we had a password called skateboard, and this gave us a captcha of 337, and the response flag is actually flag.text, and what can be found on the page is this. So okay, you can see the second attempt. The same thing, we have a password of a username of Linwood, a password of skateboard, and a flag.txt, and we have our flag right here. So I'm just going to grab the flag, copy, and we're going to head to our Tryhakme room. I'm going to scroll down, and I'm just going to paste our flag in here. I'm going to submit, and that is all. We have successfully completed the Tryhakme room.